So, Mark, could you tell us about your My Wake Up Call podcast?
Well, it's a podcast where I conversationally interview influencers, including you, Pablo, about what matters most to them in life and they think will matter most to them at the end of their life and their wake up calls getting there. I've interviewed people like, in addition to you, Ken Blanchard, Stephen Covey Jr., Larry King, Norman Lear, Esther Wojcicki, Gene Allen, and I think I'm up to 97 episodes.
Wow. And once a leader has a wake up call, what about staying awake afterward?
Well, that's always a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge with the COVID crisis because all of us are having wake-up calls. We're starting to think about things differently. We're thinking about what's important to us, things that we neglected before. And it's kind of difficult to stay committed to that once this passes, which we hope will be sooner than later. And for leaders, that's really going to be important. And what would be a great thing to do as a leader is to be a role model for your company. And something that we've come up with is something called the buddy system. And we all did the buddy system when we learned to swim. And what we're recommending, and this is a great way to build culture, is that you have people reach out to each other and say, you know, I've discovered some important things that I want to stick to, and I'd like your help. And will you be my buddy? If there's something you want to stick to that you've discovered during this, and let's check in with each other. Let's be supportive. Let's hold each other accountable, because I don't want to let time pass and not do the things that are important to me.
So, as it relates to staying awake, you had shared a brief anecdote about the two wolves. Could you share that anecdote with us?
Yes, there is an anecdote, I think it comes from Indian culture, where a young Indian is speaking to elders and was talking about the different kinds of wolves and which one survives. And what the elder said is the one that survives is the one you feed. So there are competing wolves in our minds. There's the transactional, business as usual, pedal to the metal, bottom line wolf. It's excitement driven, adrenaline driven, but it may not be helping the world qualitatively. And then there's the other wolf who's reflective, who pauses, who thinks about what's important and what's not, and also thinks about, you know, maybe it's important to connect to people as opposed to just winning. And you're going to support the one that you feed after the pandemic is over.
And so, part of that support is the buddy system that you mentioned. And you also have this concept of the 10-word check in. Could you share that with us as well, please?
So the 10-word check-in came to me as I've coached CEOs. They say, you know, we're doing check-ins with people remotely, and we don't want to shortchange people, but if someone comes up with something such as my dad, my mom, they were on a ventilator, you feel like you got to give them more space. But what the CEOs are telling me, or these entrepreneurs are telling me, is we got to get business done. So one of the things that we've come up with is called the 10-word remote check-in. And what the entrepreneur or the CEO says to his remote team or his people is, I'm going to list 10 words, and I want you each to think of the worst moment you've had since our last meeting, because I don't want anyone in our company to have to go through feeling really distressed all alone. So I'm going to list these 10 words, and then think of that time, and then you're going to just type in your name and list the word, and you don't have to participate, but give it a try and see the effect it has, and I'll tell you what the words are. Anxious, depressed, afraid, frustrated, angry, ashamed, alone, lonely, exhausted, numb. And, and here's what we're discovering is that when people in the chat area of the Zoom call start listing their name and they put a feeling word next to it, there's this collective exhale, because what you're seeing is vulnerability and courage. And as you see it populate the chat area, you feel, I'm in a group of special people soldiering through this. I don't feel so alone. And it's been really helpful in bonding culture remotely. In fact, one organization said, this is the best culture bonding exercise we've ever done. And the reason behind this, by the way, is there is research done on something called affect labeling. Affect labeling means when you put the exact word on what you're feeling, it calms down the agitation in your mind. So you can see this from your own life, that when you say to people, you accuse people, you're this way, you're that way, I'm really ticked off at you, and you say to them, what's really going on? Well, I'm frustrated. What's really going on? And when they get to what's really going on underneath, I'm afraid. It gets it off their chest. They relax. Sometimes they tear up with relief, but then they're less agitated, they're bonded to you, and they're able to have a calm conversation. And this is what we're finding when you do the 10-word check-in call. And then you can take it to another step. And you encourage people, if you put down a certain word, like that at your worst you felt angry, you felt afraid, you felt lonely, what we want you to do is start to connect in groups, and once a week, check in with the group that shared the same word, and you talk about that. So tell me, at your worst, you felt angry, I felt angry too. What was going on? And that's going to create even more bonding.
That's great, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you.